So please fuel accordingly, and let's move straight on to our next session. We end today with something almost invisible, a sliver of silicon. The global semiconductor industry is already worth about 600 billion. We heard that earlier today. And it's expected to cross $1 trillion within this decade. An advanced fabrication plant actually costs about 15 billion to build. And more than 75% of advanced chip manufacturing capacity is concentrated in East Asia. Taiwan alone produces 60% of the world's semiconductors and more than 90% of most advanced chips. You might know this, but a modern car has about 1,000 to 3,000 semiconductor chips. An electrical vehicle has even more, but an F-35 fighter aircraft relies on over 300,000 or 3 lakh semiconductor components. So, no AI systems run without them, no defense platforms operate without them, no telecom networks, medical devices, or power grids function without them. So it's not really an electronics discussion. It's about resilience, it's about concentration risk, it's about export controls, and it's about how India and Asia position themselves. So to frame this conversation and to explore what a trusted, resilient India and Asia corridor looks like, please welcome the chair of this session, Dinanath Kholkar. Please give him a big round of applause. Dina brings over 3 decades at Tata Consultancy Services, leading global transformation portfolios, and now shapes PIC's work on semiconductors, digital public infrastructure, and national innovation ecosystems. And joining him on the panel is Dr. Anulekha Nandi, who's an independent researcher. Can we give her a big round of applause? Dr. Nandi studies semiconductor geopolitics and technology supply chains, examining how export controls, strategic dependencies, and industrial policy reshape global value chains. We also have Dr. Prasanna Karhade, Professor, Chinese University of Hong Kong. Can we welcome Dr. Prasanna to the stage? Big round of applause, please. Dr. Karhade, works at the intersection of technology strategy and global production networks. We have Erez Imberman, Director Strategic Projects of the Semiconductor Devices Israel. Can we please welcome Erez to the platform? Big round of applause, please. He's joining us online. Erez brings practical experience from Israel's advanced semiconductor and electro-optics ecosystems, where innovation density, defense requirements, and export strategy operate in tight alignment. And finally, we have Dr. Yee-Shyi Chang, Senior Fellow and Technology Ambassador, India Cellular and Electronics Association. Big round of applause, please. Dr. Chang has been deeply engaged in India's electronics manufacturing expansion, working on policy coordination and global supply chain positioning as India scales its semiconductor ambitions. Ladies and gentlemen, Dina, all over to you.
Thank you, Vandana. And for the last session of day 2, it's a great honor to have some of the most accomplished and very diverse set of experts that we have gathered today. But let me set the context. Over the last 2 years, PIC, MCCI, College of Engineering, Pune, we've been working in a very collaborative way to set up the semiconductor ecosystem in the Pune region. We currently, as PIC, as a knowledge partner for Niti Aayog, we are working on the PMR Growth Hub initiative, which is the blueprint for the Pune region. And semiconductors and electronics is a very key industry that we are focusing on. So semiconductors are no longer just tiny components inside our phones and laptops, and as Vandana said, so many thousands of semiconductor chips in our cars. They are foundation of economic power, national security, AI capability, and technology leadership. Over the past few years, we've learned a very hard lesson. Global supply chains that were very highly optimized for efficiency are not necessarily built for resilience. And I think that came to the fore, especially around the time of COVID. A virus in one part of the world, export controls in another, logistics disruptions elsewhere, and suddenly industries from automobile to defense come to an halt. So the question before us today is not whether semiconductors matter. That debate is over. The real question is, can India and Asia together build a trusted, resilient, globally relevant semiconductor corridor? No country today can build the entire semiconductor value chain alone. And this applies even to the US or a China or a Taiwan. And those of you who do not have an understanding of the entire semiconductor value chain should get an understanding that even the equipments, even the materials are not necessarily available entirely in one country. So anybody saying that you are completely independent and having everything in their own country are probably kidding. East Asia brings manufacturing depth, materials expertise, and fabrication experience. India brings scale, design talent. Just as a data point, 20% of the world's VLSI designers, chip designers, are based in India. Digital strength, India has a tremendous base of digital strength. Policy momentum, there's a lot of work which is happening on policy making and a rapidly expanding market. So the opportunity is not a duplication, it is complementary. It is not isolation, but strategic interdependence. This conversation is about moving from make in India to make with Asia, from efficiency to resilience, from vulnerability to strategic relevance. And with that in mind, we thought that let us bring in the topic which is India plus Asia chip corridor, supply chain resilience, and more importantly, global relevance, because we just don't want to do it as a partnership and be irrelevant to the world, but we want to be absolutely globally relevant. And the panel that we chose, Dr. Anulekha Nandi, with her experience in digital innovation policy, AI and strategic technologies, having worked for ORF, we have her on the panel. We have Dr. Prasanna Karhade, who has been a professor and a researcher for many, many years on digital platforms, governance, and geopolitics, and I had the opportunity to meet him a couple of times in the recent times to get an understanding of what is the work that he is doing. We have Mr. Imberman, who has joined us online, and he's been very actively involved in the entire India semiconductor mission, and we've had a few rounds of discussion with him and the team at Mind Israel. Semiconductor industry, fabs, and supply chain resilience are his areas of expertise. And if I have to talk about Dr. Chang, probably I'll take the entire evening, the type of experience that he brings, a technology strategy, materials, Asia industry linkages, amazing set of experiences. So let's jump into things, and we'll do it slightly differently. We'll not have very long responses. We've had a discussion and we said we will limit to short responses, but the responses will be very focused on ensuring that we are able to have some next steps, collaboration, potential opportunities to have discussions further. So let's start off first, just as a round of quick fire, we'll do a rapid fire upfront. In one sentence, what is the single most critical ingredient for building a resilient chip corridor in Asia? Anulekha, you start.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. Thanks to PIC, thanks to Ambassador Bombawale for having me here. I feel very privileged to be a part of this panel. I feel one of the most important ingredients is trusted partnerships in the short to medium term, because we need trusted partnerships and we need to diversify while localizing. I think that is critically important to build capabilities as we go forward.
Prasanna?
Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here. I think I would say what we need is funding, very patient funding at the foundational layers as we look at the digital stack. And so I will unpack what the digital stack means as I respond to some of your next questions.
Erez, we would go next with you.
Sure. Namaskar and good evening to everybody there. Let me take 1 minute more. First, to thank you very much for Pune International Centre for inviting me for such an incredible conference. Firstly, I'm very sorry to say that I'm not physically with you in your wonderful center in Pune, but I assume you all will know about the situation in Israel and the situation that is taking the tense with the US and Iran and Israel and all this stuff that causes us to cancel the last-minute cancel of the trip. Secondly, I would like to say that since I was first come to India, which is February 2010, almost 16 years ago, I was spent almost a week and a month for the last 13 years in India, and follow up very closely on the development of ISM, the India Semiconductor Mission and the stuff, and follow up very, very closely by managing, SCL facility and other stuff with the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology that show the big journey and big development of India on the semiconductor. And the last point to start with is the Israel-India relations. Only yesterday, Prime Minister Modi ji, who just came back from a short visit in Israel, when he came for an outstanding connection between Israel and India. Both nations are very well connected in many areas, including technology, including many other stuff. And Modi ji came with a huge team of potential business cooperations and reporting an amazing and successful collaboration. And I would like to thank you all, India, for the collaboration and the India stand with Israel for everything. Now, for this one sentence that you're asking for, the trust-based long-term industry partnership, because semiconductor ecosystem are built over decades. It's not something very short. It's getting for very long term. So semiconductor today are geoeconomic infrastructure and the economic security, digital, and national resilience, basically.
Thank you, Erez. Dr. Chang?
I've been in semiconductor IC manufacturing business 40 years. Starting from Taiwan UMC, which is the first foundry in the world, earlier than TSMC. UMC is the second largest at present, second largest IC foundry in Taiwan, and number 5 in the world. Okay, so TSMC, I have many students there, even the vice president, many of them. Semiconductor IC manufacturing business, the revenue size, $1 trillion more. $1 trillion a year, at least. And annually, 20 to 30% growth, real revenue. And so whatever your handset, twofold, threefold, and as well as all other related electronic, even this microphone, everywhere, electronics in the form of integrated circuit. Why? They can reduce the size, actually more than 1,000 times. Power, reduce 100 times. There are a lot of booming increased. Actually, even the sensor technology, beforehand, even the defense, you need sensor. But common life, we need more sensor. The sensor amount needed is at least 1 trillion. 1 trillion chips will be made because the sensor, the sensor, electronic skin, electronic ear, electronic eyes, and, and nose, and ski. So all these things are related, just like why we can talk, listen, and watch each other. It's all coming from sensor. So the sensor will become next generation, huge number. So there's a company, we make a company name called Zeta Sensing Technology. Zeta is 10 to 21 fold. It means giga multiply giga and multiply 10. So all this thing means is huge, never too late. Indian should quickly start merging from software to IC and IC design. Surely in Gujarat, we have first 12-inch wafer fab are under construction. That's the first one. But we also need MEMS. Micro machining is also chips. Sensor will combine two technology, logic mixed signal as well as a sensor. Everything using chip as a platform. Single chip, single chip, 1 millimeter square. You will put all the 10, 20, 40 sensors in one single chip. So you can put in the pillow, your body, everywhere. So next generation, $1 trillion US semiconductor will quickly become $2 trillion or $3 trillion. And handset and iSet here, the Meta or others. So in the future, when you talk to others, you can still see the virtual film with 100 inches. So with this optoelectronics meta field, and as well as the, the Las Vegas show, wow, thousands of companies for handset and iSet. So all this thing means semiconductor is a core, and the Indian need a lot of IC designer, not only software, but IC designer. China has already more than 10,000 IC design companies, small and medium enterprise. This momentum, never too late. So you convert these people, we need a lot of talent. A lot of talent means million talents, which understand IC process, IC design, and application, because India has a huge market, #1 human being, population, #1. 1.5 billion is population bonus. Don't forget this one. So I think this, our dialogue, India, Asia, Taiwan, China, Korea, Southeast Asia, we should integrate it. We will become the largest, even largest production area, design area, very generation by generation. Means every handset, every year is one generation. So you can imagine many, many things. So that's why I put my best hope and wish to India to have great growth. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll come back to you, Dr. Chang. I think it gave a very good perspective, and the type of opportunities that he has been able to highlight to us and for India's opportunity is quite amazing. Dr. Nandi, I'll come to you. Anulekha, how do you see semiconductors shaping the national innovation and industrial policy and strategies across Asia?
I think over the past few years, what we've seen is almost a retraction or reversal of the logic of economic efficiency on which this value chain was developed, right? So we had, the fabulous companies focusing on product innovation, and we had the foundries focusing more on process innovation. So there was a logic of economic efficiency that made it work, that made it efficient, economically, productively. But now the logic almost is about economic security, national security, vulnerabilities, and so on. And when we kind of probe the economic security a little further, I think what lies at the heart of it is who essentially wins the AI race. That underpins a lot of the logic behind the export controls, behind the choke point strategies? And then how do we ultimately carve out a strategic space for maneuvering, for autonomy for countries like ours, essentially? And we see countries like Europe, ourselves, and others kind of with China as well, with huge capital outlays for semiconductor capacity development. But what each of these countries are facing is, are we cost competitive enough yet? Because both operational and development costs of building these facilities outside of Taiwan at the moment are significantly higher. And it kind of resembles a broader pattern that we see from the 1930s with automobile manufacturing and the focus on localization of automobile manufacturing, which was essentially the high-tech sector in that era. So we have countries like Japan, Europe trying to emulate the Ford model from the United States, and we have Japan kind of coming up with laws at that time to privilege Nissan and Toyota. But what is different with semiconductors is the diversity of industries that it can impact, from advanced computing, AI, consumer electronics, automobiles. So it's a vast range of industries on which it has a knock-on and cascading effect. And when we look at export controls and the logic and the industry support or lack of it behind it, there's a bit of a nuance. We have the chip manufacturers kind of supporting or not in favor of export controls because China is such a huge market. I mean, semiconductors are one of their biggest imports. So the loss of the Chinese market hits significantly. But we also have AI companies in the US who are able to charge a significant margin on the export of their cloud services. Now, if export controls are loosened for China, what it enables Chinese companies to do is offer those cloud services, given their non-market advantages, at a discount, and kind of that eats into their margins. So I think we need to look at this context, the unfolding of these dynamics with how the different industries that are contingent upon it approach it. So, and I think it depends a lot on where the industries are positioned, not only in the value chain, but within the wider upstream and downstream ecosystem as a whole. So
now, very interestingly, those of you who have been through all these sessions since yesterday, you would probably be able to relate to the value of semiconductors in all the areas. Right from the discussions which we had on dual intelligence, to the discussions that Baba Kalyani had, the health tech, the defense tech, all of these sessions, the underpinning stuff is about the resilience on the semiconductor stuff. And I'll come to you, Prasanna, and we had some very interesting discussions. His research and his area of work has been, he's part of the business school, so he actually looks at it from all these dimensions. And I felt that it would be useful to give you the opportunity to talk about this more from a geopolitics point of view, as well as the overall dynamics that you've seen in recent times and your research work, if you can highlight more on that.
Sure. So the last 2 decades, I've been a professor in a management school. So I study technology in a business school. But where we are at right now, geopolitics is getting more important. Yeah? And so my research in the past few years has been trying to synthesize theories from management and those from geopolitics. And so as it turns out, the analogy of launching a rocket is a really good one. Yeah? And so the first set of forces that you need to launch this rocket now are becoming really geopolitical forces. And so you need the geopolitical forces to align to kind of get that rocket going. Yeah? I think what is then following are some of the technological challenges where you need to solve some very difficult technological problems to kind of get that rocket in the orbit. Yeah? And what follows after that to keep the rocket in orbit, I think, would be economic forces. And so this is kind of the 30,000 feet view of my research. And so what we really did is looked at the impact the US-China trade war, Q1, quarter one from 2018, and what it did to the venture capital ecosystem for technology, for core foundational technology in China. And so what that helps me understand is, the synthesis of both these forces, from management, where there are resource dependencies. You talked beautifully about how resources, there are dependencies that we need to manage as we manufacture chips. But now these dependencies have been weaponized, and so the theories that we need to examine are weaponized interdependence. Yeah, and so as I synthesized both these theories, we observed that after the 2018 trade war, venture capital for tech in China went like that. I mean, they really ramped up, and this was directly a response to the trade war. You mentioned export controls, Anulekha, export controls and choke points. And so that is an effect of the trade war, where access to technology is denied, right? And so the option for that is investing in the venture capital ecosystem. A 10, 20-year gestation period, but that is really the only way to deal with weaponized interdependence. And so if I have to kind of structure this, address the geopolitical forces first, solve the complex technological problems second, and then get the market dynamics going to keep this AI rocket in orbit.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting to see the correlation of what are the effects and longer-term effects of some of these geopolitic dimensions. Erez, let's take the industry reality check, right? So from an industry standpoint, and I know you've discussed with me a couple of times on the work that you're doing in context of the India Semiconductor Mission, but overall, where do you see the supply chains being fragile, and what type of challenges do you see in the overall semiconductor space?
So good question. From practical fab experience, fragility exists in many areas, but let me try focus on a few of them. The first thing is the upstream equipment concentration. Lithography, advanced tools, spare parts, and are limited have limited qualified suppliers. It's something that has to become globally, because there are limited qualified suppliers for all of these specialty materials. Third point is the advanced packaging bottleneck. The global system is still overly dependent on the narrow geographically. And last, but not least at this point, is the talent depth. You can build a fab, and we've done it, build a fab in 3-4 years, but to build skills, and my friends from the academia and the professors over there knows that in order to build the skills, it takes an ecosystem 10-15 years, right? It's not just about building a fab. You need the people to work in the fab and be skills in that. What we have learned from the COVID and export control is that the efficiency optimized for cost creates structure fragility, but the system is lack of buffers. It's very, very tight, and everybody need to be very, very focused right now on that.
So you bring up a very important point about the people supply chain and the talent part of it. It's a hard reality for India, because we've sort of woken up in the last 2 or 3 years, gone very aggressively on planning large-scale deployment of fabs and stuff like that. But we just don't have the expertise even to build a fab setup, right? We have to import a lot of those. many of the folks, we have had various engineering colleges offering electronics and telecommunications, semiconductor courses, but unfortunately we didn't have the industry around, so most of the people, either they migrated, there are quite a few students who actually went to Taiwan and the US, also Germany, or the IT industry, because they had no other choices. So getting people back and then refactoring them into the ecosystem, getting them, that's something which I have been doing, Erez, and I think I can really appreciate the people supply chain point also that you highlighted. Dr. Chang,
one more, if I may,
yes.
One more in this sense, to teach these engineers in the university about semiconductor is one thing, which is very important, and of course, but then there is a big gap between the academia to the industry.
Yeah.
To work in the semiconductor fab is not somebody that just finished graduation on the university. It's another gap that needs to be filled between the academia to the industry. This is another important point on that.
Absolutely, absolutely true. Dr. Chang, obviously when we look towards East Asia and when we specifically look at semiconductor industry, and some of our colleagues had actually visited Taiwan and they came back wowed with the type of thing which they saw. And there is a lot for India to learn from East Asia, right? And there is a great amount of success stories. As you mentioned, you've been associated with it for 40 years. We have very high aspirations. We want to ensure that we don't make the same mistakes. We don't do things which are completely unimaginable at a very short time. Don't take unnecessary risk, because these are all heavy investments that need to be done. So your point of view around what India should learn and how it can use those learnings from East Asia.
Okay. My suggestion to this semiconductor manufacturing, IC manufacturing, actually is a process industry. So my student, PhD student, master's student, daytime, they are working in UMC, TSMC fab, not in the lab. In the lab, actually return at night, we do electron microscope analysis, cross-sectional TEM to look atomic scale like this. So we do the analysis discussion in the university, but working, because no university can support IC wafer fab, even the electricity pay, the department will bankrupt. Okay, so, but now you will have one wafer fab in Gujarat. I think 1 or 2 years later. Or actually, their joint venture partner is PowerChip. PowerChip actually provide all the technology. So first group of all the engineers will be trained in the PowerChip. But Taiwan has not only PowerChip. PowerChip is number 10. Okay, worldwide. So, but we can have a laboratory jointly, with the process industry. Why TSMC is better than Samsung? It's yield. 2 nanometer. 2 nanometer is Apple, the latest one. 2 nanometer. iPhone Pro 18. Okay, 2 nanometer. TSMC's yield is 90%. Samsung less than 50%. That's why they ship for all this thing. I tell you, the advancement of not only 2 nanometer, 1.6 nanometer next quarter will commercial production. And we are working on 1.4 nanometer and 10 angstrom, 10A means 1. There are another 3 generation leading. So what I said is yield. The yield is you need to cooperative by multiplication factor. So the teamwork, TSMC, Morris Chang, he already retired. But why TSMC still have more than 50% net profit? And annually they invest 40 billion US dollar equipment, but they maintain profit margin, net profit margin, more than 50% every year. Why? Not because of Morris Chang. The same level of chairman and CEO, they are more than 15, the same level. Anyone get a chairman or a CEO is the same deal. Why? This is a high teamwork. This is an important thing. How? Process industry. So you need to do multidisciplinary. For the chairman of TSMC go to the high school to recruit the people. The people you put a career, actually university 4 years and master student 2 years, and 2 years in TSMC, 8 years you become qualified real production engineer. So they make this one, why the TSMC chairman go to the high school to let the career, because this is not software like this one. No, dedication 24 hours. US, the Arizona fab, actually TSMC sent already 900 people there. And surely they deliver 300 babies in 1 year. So, but why we cannot use US engineer too much? Because they are lack of coherency, systematic. So this team up 24 hours is most important. That's the spirit of the team. With the technology, every detail. All the engineer in the IC process is master degree. There's no bachelor degree. Why? We are really do the practice, surely. Actually, with this one, we will build in the future at least 100,000 qualified production engineer of IC processing industry. Process industry is one thing, okay? This heavy investment. The other one is IC design company. There are 50 different kinds of IC. We call it ASIC, application specific integrated circuit. 50 kinds, 50 different category. Whatever power chip, mobile chip, all kind of 50. So if India make 10,000 IC design company, then you divide it by 50. Each category only 200. But you start with 1,000 company, national put the goal. Each field, only 20 companies. VC, what you mentioned, important. And mainland China now create a new capital name called the patient capital. Capital investment with patience. Patience means at least invest 5 years before you get good return. Not buy and sell. No, with this one, Taiwan already proved. Since 1976, I was a student there. I joined the wafer fab. Till now, 50 years. We sustained this one, become world #1 for 50 years. But really production from 1986 till now 40 years. Preparation. So with this one, once you are doing this one, there's no genius can overthrow your job in IC process. Also, ASIC design company. Robot, useless. AI only is a tool. For this one, how come you get the AI engineer? We use AI in IC fabrication fab, but not in the core. Technology is very, very complicated. Not like the Silicon Valley guys say, oh, they can replace people. Human, it's dream. Because they don't understand IC processing, the physical process. So, as I said, this semiconductor IC business is 1 century business. Never too late. You start, you devote, you will get reward. Actually, my friend, 1 week ago, TSMC, UMC related or high-ranked people, one of my friends, he actually convert all his other stock to TSMC stock 2 years ago. So now he is very happy. Sightseeing everywhere. Why? TSMC is still growing. continuous growing, never really dropped like this, surely like this one, but this incline, because irreplaceable.
Yeah.
Okay?
No, I think it's a very good point that you bring about, because I've been interacting with quite a few leaders from the semiconductor industry, and one of the things which I realized that they had multiple disciplinary skills across different aspects of the chip design, manufacturing space, as well as the point that you mentioned about the patient capital. Another very important thing, that there is enough, there are great opportunities. India itself has a huge market for chips, and hence we have to look at it from that perspective. Let's move to specifically to India, and I'll go to Erez, because we've had a couple of discussions earlier, myself, Gautam, we have had discussions with Mind Israel, and at that time we've had interactions with Erez. You've worked very closely with the India Semiconductor initiatives. Where can India realistically add value in the global value chain over the next decade? Because, obviously there is huge announcements, there is large amount of investments jointly done with some of the big names in the industry. But of course, people will start asking questions as regards where is the return of investment? The point that I had brought up earlier, can we be globally relevant in whatever we are doing? Erez.
Let me connect to the Dr. Yee said patient. I think this is the key word here, because it takes time. India is in the right track, and India is taking the right steps, I believe, in order to be a semiconductor dominant later on. But it doesn't come in one day, not in 5 years. Okay, it takes time. And the fact that since 2021, when the India Semiconductor Mission announced the new policy that attract company to come, and then Tata Electronics start building their fab in Gujarat and many others, the OSAT facilities, it takes time. To build a fab is 3-4 years, and then to transfer the technology, and then to build the tools, and then to qualify the technology, and get the right yield in place, etc. It takes time. So patient is a key word here. Now, India, can be mature and specialty nodes. We don't have to start or not have to replicate Taiwan or Korea or US. We just have to realistically lead in mature and specialty nodes, like 28 nanometer to 65 nanometer on analog, power, RF, which has enough market on automotive, power electronics, sensors as mentioned here, and large demand and lower geopolitical sensitivity. So all over the years, when India start thinking about semiconductor, and there's a big debate on which technology to start, and people are saying, no, we need to go to the leading edge. I was always fighting and saying, no, you don't have to go to this leading or bleeding edge on the analog devices, which is 28 to 80 to 65 nanometers. There is enough market and much less capital investment and much easy process technology to start with. So that's where India is starting, and actually that's what Tata is doing right now, right? Secondly, all the advanced packaging and the OSAT, which is the outsourcing, the assembly and testing, this is the fastest scalable entry point, and right as we speak, I think there is 6 or 7 or 8 OSAT facilities that are built in India, and this is much, much faster. It's not a real semiconductor manufacturing, let's be honest on that, but again, it's the back end of the semiconductor, and that's when India can dominate very fast. About the design and manufacturing integration, so India already has world-class chip design talent, and I believe that every company has a design in India. Right now, every big name has the design because India has the talents, the people, the engineers, the PhDs that are dealing with design. And the last one is the strategic trusted manufacturing, like, defense and space and some secure supply chains, so things which are including sensitive applications, which every country is taking care of itself. In this case, there is no globalization. Every country is very isolated and dealing with its trusted manufacturing. So this is another point that, of course, India can lead in there. But I think that first need to be proved that India can build the first fab and start doing some semiconductor manufacturing. And at this point, it's in the middle of the process of building its first manufacturing and the supply chain.
Thank you, Erez. A very good perspective, and I think you've been very close to the India Semiconductor Mission, and I agree with you, the point that you mentioned that we have enough opportunities and we don't necessarily have to go to bleeding technology on day one, and it's a journey that we have to embark on over the years. Anulekha, to your point, you can probably see over the last 2 or 3 years, there's so much amount of investment that or rather co-investment that the government is doing, which is in effect some incentives which are there. But beyond incentives, what policy or institutional shifts are essential for India?
Thank you. I think I'll answer that in 2 parts. The first part is, what does India have going for itself, right? So we've had lessons from the version 1 of the ISM, where we have like 10 projects, and then the ISM 2.0 is on the cards, and where we can see a lot more focus on a design, kind of leveraging on the design capabilities that we have in the country. We have a lot of GCCs working as R&D hubs for major companies. Recently, Qualcomm's 2nm chip was released by the minister. So I think we have a lot of talent actually contributing to design capabilities, leading edge design capabilities and IPs for major semiconductor companies. So that is one kind of core capability that I believe we have, and that goes a little under-recognized because essentially we don't own the IP. The other thing is obviously what we can offer in terms of manufacturing as well as ATP is the cost competitiveness as a market. So setting up manufacturing, operational and development is easier in India, so that is our core offering. And also the demand potential, right? Because of our data center momentum, our AI innovation and startup ecosystem momentum, as well as the electronics manufacturing momentum. So you have a lot of potential for downstream demand that creates a very positive case to kind of co-locate some of these capabilities in the country. And also, I think we are also seeing increasingly venture capital investment. We recently have, I think, PXV investing in C2I semiconductors. So that was one of the big ticket semiconductor startups. We do have a thriving semiconductor startup ecosystem, but the challenge there is how do we commercialize those designs? Because most of these startups work on semiconductor design. And how do we then commercialize those outputs, essentially? And I think going forward, there are 3 things in my mind that we do need to focus on. I think we have a lot to learn from the successes of ITRI. I think the institutional role that it played in Taiwan's semiconductor journey. And following on that, we need to focus on applied research and development. Kind of how do we improve yields, like you mentioned, and how do we make production processes more efficient? So I think when we are talking about R&D, we tend to talk more about core R&D, but we have a very limited focus on applied R&D, which is critically important for semiconductor companies because we need that to scale. So I think a focus on that is important. And apart from value chain development, which we've been doing, we have foundries and ATP facilities coming up, OSATs coming up in the country under the semiconductor mission. But I think we need to look at ecosystem development as a whole. We need to look at if we can leverage existing capabilities in and extend those existing capabilities in refining materials, minerals, processing, because we might not own the resources, but we can do the value addition to them. So if we can develop those capabilities, develop capabilities and equipments as well. So kind of look at, building ecosystem capabilities is, I think, one other area we need to perhaps focus on when we are looking at building strategic capabilities.
A couple of things just related to that, since we are talking about policy. Of course, this industry, especially the manufacturing side of it, is very natural resource intensive. That is, you have water dependency at scale, power, and especially power quality. And India is not necessarily having that much amount of resources for this type of an industry to scale up. So are there things being worked on the policy side around these areas, or are there opportunities for us to do something?
I think in terms of core policy, not to my knowledge, but there are opportunities in renewables that are being looked at, not just for semiconductors, but also to power data centers, because they are also essentially a water and power intensive industry. So I think renewables, nuclear power essentially is also being looked at, alternatives to traditional power sources. In terms of water scarcity or water requirements, it is, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's an intensively water-intensive industry. And given that some of these facilities are located in areas which are not exactly resource-rich in that context, does present challenges. So I think we need to kind of look at, and this kind of feeds into the sustainability argument. If we have better sustainability practices, we can better support these industries. So kind of looking at renewables, looking at better sustainability and conservation practices might help, give a boost and fillip to these industries.
Prasanna, you visit India almost every month, and I'm sure over the years you have seen the type of scale up that India has done on Digital India and the adoption in that space. Clearly that's a strength for a developing nation, right? But do you see that that same strength being used effectively in context of semiconductors, and what is your view around that?
Not automatically, right? So I think that would be the short answer. If I have to elaborate, let me go back to what I discussed in my one-liner. I talked about a stack. I talked about a digital stack. So these are like 5 things stacked up on top of each other. And so picking up on some of the words Anulekha used, a core, right? And so at the foundation would be hardware, right? I mean, at the foundation would be the hardware. On top of that sits your cloud infrastructure. On top of that, you can think of your models. You could also place your data up there in the 4th layer. And so at the very top, then we see the AI applications, right? And so I think to make this relatable, we don't want to talk about chips for the sake of chips, right? I mean, we actually want the AI to fix some of our problems. And so thinking about this kind of a stack kind of helps. To kind of answer the question you asked me, maybe I'll switch to Marathi for a minute and then come back. So माझी आई नेहमी म्हणते की आढात नाही तर पोहऱ्यात कुठून येणार, right? I think this is, so let me translate this for my wonderful friends here who don't speak Marathi. So if it's not in the well, if there is no water in the well, the bucket that you draw from that well will have no water. I mean, so kind of going back to your previous comment, right? I mean, the processes have to be hyper efficient and intelligent, and the people have to be intelligent. And so magically AI is not going to make them intelligent, right? And so, so I would say, yes, we have a lot of strengths in some layers of this stack. But to really reap the rewards, it is not going to happen automatically. I think we need a lot of patient capital investments at these core foundational layers. I think then there is some hope of kind of building on those strengths that we have.
Sure. And since you also are involved with research deeply, and you're specifically mentioning about the type of funding, I just wanted to pick on that particular point. Just give a little bit of flavor for the type of investments that happen in your university, and how some of the top universities in Hong Kong have scaled up and made up to that level. So that would be very interesting for the audience, especially there are a lot of academicians as well as students out here. So specifically on the research element, not necessarily only linked to semiconductors.
Sure. So I'm an academic. I've been at the Chinese University of Hong Kong for the past 3 years. The last time we checked, we were ranked 36th in the world, CUHK. This doesn't happen automatically, needs a lot of patient capital. Our research budgets are in the billions, have been so for the past 3 decades. So I'll give you some context. So Hong Kong has what, 7-8 million people. It has 5 universities in the top 100. Doesn't happen automatically. For the last 3 decades, they have invested in education in these universities. Outside of Hong Kong, London is the only city that has 5 universities in the top 100. You know, I think this takes time, patient capital, hiring the right people, and leaving them alone. I think all these are important ingredients. Research takes time. Some of the papers, so the recent paper I published on AI governance took me 6.5 years to write. The research that I described very briefly on the venture capital ecosystem, we bought data. It was very expensive. We wrote grants, $1 million grants. So this, in Hong Kong dollars, I'm saying that now. So this takes a lot of coordinated effort. The research ecosystem needs to be mature in that sense. Yeah, so if you are not able to curate the data yourself, you have to buy it. And so that is not cheap. So these, I think, research takes time, effort, coordinated effort. And so that is the ecosystem I find at CUHK, where I currently work. And this will, it can change, it can be done. And so I'm happy to work with schools who are willing to kind of, work with that kind of a patient approach.
Erez, I'll come to you. What makes collaboration, especially with partner countries, how does that really, what are the type of frameworks you have for success or for failure? So if you can just give some examples and maybe just take India and Israel as an example. You know, you've probably talked about us being very strong partners, specific areas of collaboration. So what is that which what will succeed, what will fail?
So I believe that the success has to be, first of all, aligned on the expectations. You know, the alignment is very important because technology transfer must be clearly scoped. All the expectation must be very good aligned, because otherwise it causes a lot of misalignment and disappointment and stuff like that, and the collaboration will not be successful. So the alignment on the expectation is very important. Secondly, we talked about it before, but again I use this word, the capital patient. Semiconductor ROI is very, very, very long term. If people think that you're going to have an ROI in 3-4 years, it doesn't work. You know, the best case that you can start seeing a return of the investment on a semiconductor is 7, 8, 10 years. And you know, if people have the expectation that this will take short term, this will cause, that's a key success for that one. Third one is and I think we talked about it before as well, is the discipline, the operational and engineering discipline. The semiconductor manufacturing is very disciplinary process. The engineers, the technicians, the operations must be very, very disciplined, and doing the same day in, day out in order to maintain the process technology in place and the yield in place. Otherwise, the variation is so huge that it cannot be successful. This is a third point that must be for the success. You're talking about the collaboration. So, and again, for example, when you know SCL, the semiconductor laboratory in 2010 was licensing technology from Tower Semiconductor in Israel, and I have the opportunity to be the executive manager all these operations. This is a big cooperation because we take talents from Israel, we take technology from Israel, we take people, talents in India, and we take the SCL itself, and we build together a successful team that is dealing with all the steps of taking an old facility and get it into a more advanced. It's getting at the end of the day for 180 nanometer technology. It's not the most advanced technology, but for 8-inch wafer on a 180 nanometer technology, it was in 2010 was a big success. And even today, 15 years later, it's still very successful. And it was a huge and very successful cooperation between India and Israel in this sense, both for the technology and the people. Okay, we take a lot of people, we train a lot of people from India back in the fabs in Israel, and then we have a lot of training in India, and then we have a lot of on-the-job training moving forward through the operation of this facility. That, by the way, the SL facility is not a high-volume manufacturing, but still it has all the complexity and all the challenges of ecosystem of a semiconductor fab. So the collaboration in order to bring the ecosystem like raw material, gases, chemicals, spare parts, equipment maintenance, process technology support, yield improvement, and all these things are going together with a big collaboration.
Thank you, Erez. I'll probably have Dr. Chang say a few words about collaboration. And we had some very good discussions yesterday over lunch, especially around the collaboration that Asia and India can do to be relevant to the overall global supply chain.
Yeah. Actually, the supply chain part, actually from material, consumable material, and the chemical, as well as liquid, and also DI water, all this pure, clean, and fine chemicals. They are huge. For instance, $1 trillion, the business, actually consumable altogether is 100 billion, roughly 10%. So, since you already will have this Tata in Gujarat, so you quickly will have the train head, but also you will have a PCB, as well as most important is OSAT, as well as the MEMS company. MEMS, actually now micro machining is 8-inch wafer fab is most important thing. So with this one, you can have the consumable for the metallurgical things, as well as fine chemical, as well as a clean. Every step you need to clean, okay? But clean, you need to ultra purity, okay? So a lot of chemical or others is Japan material. So although Japan, the ICEA fab is weak now, but they are supply material. So we in the material, equipment, refurbish, as well as consumable. So Taiwan, we have a lot of refurbished and as well as a supply. TSMC asked any accident happen of each equipment, in 4 hours, you must be there. Otherwise, your contract bye-bye. Okay, 4 hours. That's impossible in US supply chain. So whole Taiwanese surrounding All move there. Why? Because the target there will be 12-inch wafer, another 6. So that's good enough momentum. We are talking about multi-billion, multi-tens billion dollars. So all the supply chain company, more than 100, all move to the Arizona. So the same thing, this ecosystem is clear. Okay, that's one thing. Second thing is not only silicon, but also we call the compound semiconductor. Second generation gallium arsenide, third generation gallium nitride, as well as the silicon carbide, especially silicon carbide and gallium nitride. Recently, the NVIDIA older system, they start to use 800-volt gallium nitride, not silicon, in the power part. And that makes multiple company listed. Listed and very good, because this gallium nitride, 800, but silicon carbide, you can go 1700 and 3300. And 6600 volt is high-speed train. So you don't need a big one. Everything's similar, small like this. Surely this one is a mobile base station chip. Using this chip, the huge macro basin in tower, we can put in the pocket, in my pocket. Is every home will put one home base station. Like this one, here, connectivity no good. Why? Because we are using outside, and the Wi-Fi router cannot handle 200 people. But using mobile base station, miniaturized, using ICEA, the new breakthrough, you just put 10, no problem. Everybody 100 megabit per second. Not like now, 2K, I checked, 10K. Only text working. All the picture, very slow, like this. Why? It's because this one miniature IC. So what I said is compound semiconductor. The investment of each compound semiconductor, not $1 billion, $100 million, which you need to do that. That's one thing. Second thing is the silicon carbide. You can quickly make a silicon carbide a factory or foundry together to enter into EV car. EV car, there are two business. One is EV car. The other one is charging station. I'm not saying the simple charging station. It's hyper charging station. It's 1 megawatt per charging station. What's the effectiveness? Is 1 second, 1 kilometer. So if you want to drive further 300 kilometer, then 5 minutes. Shenzhen, Shanghai, everywhere now started. So this is our opportunity. Why? Most Chinese taxi, business taxi, all the one already changed to EV car. Why? The cost of transportation for, say, 10 miles become 10%. All become profit. Petrol car in taxi out, totally out. China last year, 58%. The new car sales, 57% actually EV car. The first time turnover. EV car, when you do this EV car throughout the whole India, your import and the dependence of petrol heavily reduced, at least 5 times reduced. It's easily calculated by economics. You can do the research project easily and implement. So this is a silicon carbide business. Why the Elon Musk car success? Because he actually contract exclusive with ST Micro, Europe, France. With this one, silicon carbide go into mass production. Every car, silicon carbide. The same thing, the infrastructure. India has 3.5 million kilometers square. How many charging stations you need it? Every road, every hotspot, and every home. So with this one, you will create another $5 trillion about the transportation, but based on semiconductor. It's real, it's not joking. Okay, that's another sector is silicon carbide. 12-inch wafer fab, not making device, only made the substrate. This is new things. In Hong Kong, my student now is the first 12-inch wafer. They are going to do this packaging, advanced packaging, using silicon carbide as interposer. Why NVIDIA has bottleneck to produce the chip? One chip is like this size. Why? Because the limiting factor is packaging. That's why TSM is starting to do packaging using silicon of 12-inch wafer. So you put the logic, power, and the connection all in one. So that makes save a lot of power and electricity. But silicon of this one, per day, they only per machine, only one wafer. That's why they have bottleneck. So in this way, silicon carbide comes in too, because silicon carbide, less energy wasted. Actually, 3 times better. The energy conversion efficiency is 98%. But the silicon, when you do the heat dissipation, they are 80%. 20% difference. So in this way, silicon carbide is a new one. Silicon carbide interposer. You need this one. Silicon carbide, that one is transparent, like glass. But the heat is dissipation. So there are huge opportunity happens. So I elucidate all these things is you can join this one. You starting in the same pace. Not like 12-inch wafer fab, you are 30 years behind.
Yeah.
But, so in this way, you catch the timing and devoted, you young student, you devoted. That will make a big success. Okay.
No, wonderful. I think it itself is a wonderful topic, and I think the pointers that you have given, and we've been, over the last 2 years, we've been working with quite a few of the industry bodies, like INEMI and IESA and others, in ensuring that we understand opportunities across the value chain and different things that India potentially can do. So what I'll do is, I'll open up for the audience to, if they have any questions. You have a very diverse set of experts. Please feel free. Yeah, we'll take one there, and we'll take 3 questions.
Jai Hind, everyone. I'm Akshat Dogra. And thanks a lot to the panel for an intriguing discussion. My question is directed towards Dr. Anulekha. Ma'am, what promise does the Central Asian Republic nation hold for the REE, the rare earth element and the metals, the reservoirs they possess, which can give a fillip to the aviation industry, the defense industry, the EVs and the automobile industry? And is there a case in point to reinvigorate the India's look north policy to have a supply chain management clause in it? Thank you.
We'll take the other 2 questions as well.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Raj Hirvani. My question is also to Dr. Anulekha, and other panelists can also answer. See, the chip industry is heavily IP led. The chip industry is heavily IP led, and we have seen last 5 decades very high profile patent wars between all the major players. So in order to succeed, you have to navigate through those patent thickets. So have you given some thought in your study to that part? Sure. Second question is the kind of tension what we see between US and China today. We saw a few decades back between US and Japan. What lessons can we learn from these past developments? And third is Sematech kind of consortium model, which US had for 40 years, succeed in Asia? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take those 2 questions. Anulekha, if you want to start, and any one of you, Erez, if you want to respond. Yeah.
Hi, I'll take the RE supply chain question first. So I think, there are geographical limitations in terms of where REs are found. But I think where we can perhaps add value is if we develop capabilities to refine and process some of them. So I think that is where our value addition might lie. And on patents and IP, I think, like I said, a lot of our design capabilities are now, we contribute them towards companies like Qualcomm, right? They have their GCCs in India, so we don't technically own the IP there. But the next step is to look at some of the semiconductor startups that we do have in the country that are doing like really good work in terms of how we can help them commercialize their work and bring them to production. I think that is the next step that we need to kind of have really focused policies around. And in terms of the rivalry between US and China, I think these are two countries where, apart from semiconductors and apart from their internal rivalries, we have immense economic dependencies on both of them. They alternate as our trading partners, first and second by the year. So I think kind of looking at how we navigate that context is looking at how do we diversify our relationships with other countries, which is why I mentioned trusted partnerships. So what relationships can we forge? What comparative advantages do we bring to the table are questions that we need to ponder and answer. And I think then kind of align them with the capabilities that we currently do have and the ones we can leverage in the near to medium term. Because we can't localize all of the value chain, and we definitely cannot do that in the short to medium term. So what are the kind of diversifications in terms of economic relationships that we can have that gives us a bit of balance and a bit of space for maneuver? That's what I would say.
We'll take last two questions. We'll take one from there and one this lady. Why don't you start, ma'am? Why don't she take it? Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and it was a wonderful, very insightful discussion. My name is Sanyukta. I'm a student of energy. So my question is, how important is the robustness of semiconductor supply chain or semiconductor industry for the energy infrastructure, especially with the rise of renewables, solar and battery? And recently we have seen nationwide blackouts, electricity blackouts in Chile, Spain. So what role does semiconductor play in the energy security for a nation? Thank you.
We'll take the second question and then we'll close. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Akshat, and my objective question is, since we are well aware about the fact that the world is going through international chaos, how can we understand the fact that during a transition between power and US not willing to give up power in a multipolar world, how the relations would affect between India and China? Because a military power like US, which has military bases in 70 to 80 odd countries, it would be very challenging for any other country to challenge US hegemony. And it will undeniably be either Russia or China. So how would India cope up in that scenario by, let's say, the year 2050?
Okay, anyone wants to take, Erez, you want to take the first question around the power sector?
I think that's kind of some political questions.
Yes.
Over there. But I just can say about again about the supply chain, which was asking. I do believe that India should focus on the supply chain and bring as much as possible into the country. Because again, as mentioned before, if you want to have a 4 hours SLA to bring up a tool that break, you cannot do it remotely. And if you want to be in effect that you are doing better and better and improving, you have to bring the supply chain in-house. And I'm sure and I know that it's not possible that everything will be in India. But there are many, many things that can be. For example, equipment manufacturer, the OEM, that are selling equipment in India, they must have a service center in India, right? Or some of the chemical suppliers must be in India. And some of the gases and chemicals must be close to the factory. Otherwise, the efficiency and the uptime of the manufacturing facility will never be competitive to the others. And that's why I believe that right now it's the time to focus, and I think that's what India tried to do right now, is focus on the supply chain and make sure that as much as possible can be in the country.
Anyone in the energy sector? So I'll probably just tap on what Dr. Chang mentioned, and probably there is a lot of things that India should learn from what China has done. And it's actually apt that we have been talking about having a China Studies Center in PIC, and combining that along with the Center for Sustainable Energy and Mobility that we have, that itself is a good opportunity. The entire auto sector, Dr. Chang, what has been transformed, and if you talked about the cost per kilometer or per mile being brought down to 1/10, it's quite itself is a great example for India to follow in. I'll let you have the last word.
Okay. The energy sector heavily related with the semiconductor. Actually, solar cell is a semiconductor. Okay, is a semiconductor. Einstein get Nobel Prize because of optoelectronics. Because this optoelectronic effect for the whatever the photon energy we call the PV. With this PV, you convert light become electricity. Later, actually, there is not only silicon, but also a new recipe called the perovskite. It's transparent, which can become roll to roll. This handset backside, you can cut, and this one. The new wave, all this AI, you will use this one in the space. The space, the Elon Musk just raised the space station using the big one. So energy sector to produce energy from solar or any photon. And then how to use it. Less thermal consumption, dissipation. Less thermal dissipation. And then return to storage and use it efficiently. It's all related with the semiconductor. So that's a huge sector. I show you this one, only 1 second. $50. That's the mobile base station. We make everything small. This is a three-fold handset. So here, right? So everything is semiconductor, including display, optoelectronics. You take the light, become energy, or energy become LED, become lighting. So all these are semiconductor. So we correlate all this thing. So we go this one and converge, focus. Then you can get good result. Whatever the AI or to put in different space. Especially India is very hot. So the solar is stronger. 2.5 times, 2.5 times more energy from solar compared with China. China average 1,200 hours. Here, 2,500, 3,000. Using the same investment, you get 2.5 times more energy come out. So you have great advantage. This hot area, actually solar, sunshine is best gift from the sun and God. Thank you.
Thank you. I think let's give a round of applause to our wonderful panel here. I'm sure you'd love to interact with them. We'll keep engaging with them on some of the work that is happening at PIC, and look forward to staying connected.
Thank you. Amazing session. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them another round of applause. Can I invite Ambassador Bambavale up on this stage to give a small memento to our panelists? So first of all, to Dr. Anulekha Nandi. Big round of applause, please. To Dr. Prasanna Karhade. Dr. Yee-Shyi Chang. And a big round of applause for Erez Imberman, who joined us from Israel. Thank you. And one for Dina, our PIC director and moderator of the session. Let's just get a last photograph of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been very patient. So as we conclude today, one thing is clear. The world beyond globalization is not a theory. It's being built in factories, fabrication plants, research laboratories, and policy rooms. Sovereignty today is not rhetoric. It is capability in design, in manufacturing, in talent, in resilience under pressure. And across today's sessions, from dual intelligence this morning, yes, it was this morning, to defense manufacturing, to the India and Asia chip corridor, we've returned to one underlying issue. Sovereignty is ultimately about the quality of decisions and the systems that support them.